Okay, we're recording. So welcome everybody. Welcome to my little free webinar here. I thought I'd do a little webinar on common iris signs. And you know, I've done a lot of these little webinars. I try to do one every month. You can watch those. They're on my website, so you can watch those on your leisure. But tonight I'm going to do it on common iris signs so that you can learn just a couple of signs. You know, these are just a few signs that I'm going to show you. There are many, many, many iris signs. And, you know, it takes months to learn all this stuff. And this kind of just gives you an idea of a few of the common ones that you can see. My name is Brenda Generali, and I am the president and CEO of Joyful Living Services. That's my company. And I am a certified comprehensive iridologist and a certified comprehensive iridology instructor through IPA, which is the Iridology, the International Iridology Practitioners Association. I'm also a certified nutritional consultant. And this year, I was able to get our school sanctioned. So we're a sanctioned school and accredited through IPA. Also, we're approved by the Board of Registered Nursing, and this course, if you're a nurse, this course does offer continuing education credits, so that's exciting. And here's my website, www.joyfullivingservices.com. If you want to look at the website, you know, I've been working on the website for years and years, so there's all kinds of information on there. It's all free. You can look at it. And there's all kinds of health information, iridology, there's videos. So if you like this little, you know, this little free webinar, I have about 7 of them now that I've done. And you can go to the website, to joyfullivingservices.com. And if you go to videos, you'll see them and you can watch them. They don't cost anything. They're on different subjects like the history of iridology and introduction to iridology and all the different things that I've done. And I'll keep doing them once a month. Here's my email if you want to reach me, or telephone. And of course, Facebook I live on Facebook, so Facebook is a really great way to reach me. I've been in iridology with my business since 1985. So here's some information about me to start. So I started in 1983 in iridology when I had my own health issues. And I had a lot of digestive issues. That was the time when I was dating. And for those of you that are familiar with dating, you know how stressful dating can be. And I was very stressed out. I was breaking out in hives all over my body. I had a lot of pain, a lot of digestive problems, couldn't eat out anymore. You know, it was really bad. And I was seeing somebody who had a friend at the time who had endometriosis, and she was seeing an iridologist, and this iridologist was helping her. So, you know, she knew about my problems, and she said, well, you know, why don't you check it out? So I found an iridologist in the Bay Area. At that time, I was living in Santa Clara, so I was in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I found an iridologist, and I went to him, read my eyes, and I thought, oh, everything is fine, right? I thought I was fine. Nothing was wrong, even though I had all these problems. And he told me, you know, all these things and what to do about it. And I did it and I got better. I got better. And so I sent some friends to him and they got better. And I thought, wow, I kind of like to learn about this. You know, a lot of people learn iridology because they're changing professions. A lot of people learn iridology because they want to help people, you know, we're all healers in some way, in some form. I fell into it because I was sick. And there are a lot of people that do that as well. You know, they have their health problems and they fall into it because they're sick. So I called one day, I called Chris and I said, how do I learn more about this? At the time, I was working at Stanford University, and I was working in the engineering department, and I wanted to learn more. And he said, we'll call down at Escondido, and Dr. Jensen teaches iridology classes. See when, you know, if you can get into a class. Well, it just so happened that he had a class starting that August, which I don't know, I think that was in a month or 2 months. I signed up for his beginning class because I didn't even know if I'd like it. I loved it. I went down there to the Hidden Valley Ranch. I took his class. I loved it. I stayed for the advanced class. I got fully certified by Dr. Jensen. I got out the next week. They were referring clients to me. And so, that is how I started. So in 1989, I became certified by Dr. Bernard Jensen. I didn't even know who he was. I didn't even know that he was basically the father of iridology here in this country. I didn't have any plans to make a business. It just kind of happened. And so that's when I started my career in iridology, bought a camera, and started seeing clients. And so my main mission for all these years is to help others improve their health. In 2018, I became a member of IPA and became a comprehensive iridology instructor, which has been absolutely incredible for me. I love it. Absolutely love teaching iridology. I've always loved teaching iridology, and I love working with the people in IPA. They've been very supportive of me, very helpful of all my students and my graduates. And I'm happy that I've become my company has become a sanctioned school. And I see clients from all over the world. Even with COVID, the nice thing about iridology is even with COVID, we can do remote readings. So my business has increased during COVID because people want to know about their health. This is a really great time to become involved in iridology. It's a great time because more and more people are becoming more and more aware of their health, aware of their bodies, want to become more responsible in their health. And so it's a great time. So my goals are to write a book, and I've already come out with the title, which is Iridology, The Path to Joyful Living. And I'm in a fellow program, which is about 5 years. So that's something that I'm working on. This is me years and years and years ago when I volunteered for Dr. Jensen. That's one of his cameras there. I volunteered for him at one of his birthday parties, took pictures of hundreds and hundreds of people's eyes and for them. And so Dr. Pesic sent me this picture. I didn't even know it existed. So that was fun. And this is a current picture of me. So what is iridology? If you don't know what iridology is and you're just kind of curious, maybe you're in my Facebook group, maybe you just heard about it, from a friend, but iridology is the study of the color and the structure of the iris of the eye as it relates to genetic predispositions and health of the body systems. So when we're looking at the eyes, we're looking for your genetic predispositions. And those genetic predispositions can tell us a lot. So with iridology, we're looking at 5 generations. Okay, so not only are, we're looking at your eyes, but then we are seeing markings coming in from your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, your great-great-grandparents, and and so on. And most of us don't know anything about, the health of our great-great-grandparents. A lot of us know about our grandparents and our great-grandparents, but most of us don't know about the health of the people that came before them. So this iridology tells us a lot about our genetic predispositions. So how do we use iridology? By looking at the iris of the eye, we can see the genetic tendencies. And by learning about your genetic tendencies, you can learn what you should eat, what you should drink, type of exercise you should do, type of supplements that'll be good for you, type of lifestyle maybe that you need, anything that will help you to live comfortably in your body. There's so many people that I see that they eat whatever they want. And then they have all these problems. They have all these digestive problems. They have all these health problems, and they don't know why they have all these problems. Part of it is their genetic tendencies. It's coming in from, our previous generations, our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents. And part of it is our lifestyle and our diet and what we're doing. And so a big part of iridology is learning about our genetic predispositions, and then based on that, learning what we should be eating for our eye type, or our eye color, or our eye constitution, and our subtypes. You know, if you're in the Facebook group, you're going to see me pretty much doing a lot of general comments, but mostly about eye color and subtypes. Once in a while, there'll be something that'll stand out, like a pigment. I'll make comments about pigments, brown pigments or orange pigments or yellow pigments, or I'll make comments about some of the other markings that stand out. And so this is all genetic. When we look at the eyes, it's all genetic. Iridology does not name any diseases. We cannot diagnose from the eye, but it shows us what areas need nurture, okay, and what body systems need strengthening. I don't know about the rules in other countries, and we have a lot of students from other countries. We have students in many states, and we have students in all different countries. And every state has its own rules, and every country has its own rules. Now, maybe in the UK, they can use iridology to diagnose. We cannot do that in the United States. It's against the law to diagnose without a medical license. So we cannot say that somebody has cancer, for instance. Okay, we're not doctors. And I wouldn't want to do that anyway. I'm not a doctor. I would send people for tests to find out. You know, I might suspect that there's a problem, but we cannot diagnose from the eye. So we can't name any kind of diseases, but we can look for genetic tendencies that might lead us to thinking there may be a problem. And then, we can help our clients in that way. So we're very careful with what we say. Okay, iridology does not diagnose. That's it. We cannot diagnose. We analyze and we assess those predispositions and genetic tendencies. And, something very, very important about iridology is that it's important to look at the eyes with reverence, honor, and respect. Because when you look at somebody's eyes, you're looking at the iris, you're looking at that person. There's a saying that the eyes are the windows to the soul, and they really are. When we look at the eyes, we're not only looking at the physical part of a person, but we can also see the emotional, the physical, and the spiritual. And so when we're looking at somebody's eyes, we're looking at more than just their eyes. We're looking at who a person really is. And when we work with somebody, we're working with more than just the physical. There's always the emotional component. And, some iridologists also work with the spiritual component. So it really depends on what the client wants. But we need to have honor and respect and reverence. It's very important. Now, anybody associated with IPA, all members of IPA, we are really concerned with the interests of all who come in contact with us. IPA has very, very high standards, and which is why our students go through the class that they go through. The level 1, the level 2, there's a lot of learning, there's a lot of information. And then after the classes, they have to go through an exam. And, all of that is because of what's expected through IPA. It's not something that somebody can learn just out of a textbook and say, oh, I'm a certified iridologist. Anybody that comes out of IPA, they know what they're doing. And so we are also very, we're very compassionate and empathetic with our clients, and that's very important. This is the chart that I use and we use in the classes, and this is the latest iridology chart. Original chart was developed by Dr. Jensen. If you watch my video that I did on the history of iridology, you'll see that iridology goes all the way back to King Tut. I mean, it's really amazing. If you are interested in history of any kind, and there's a lot of people that are very interested in history. If you're interested in history and you're interested in iridology, go online and research the history of iridology. I did a little bit of it and came up with a presentation, but there is so much history in iridology, what you can learn about the history of iridology. So this chart has been revised by Ellen Jensen, and it's the one that we use in the class. And it is, I like it because it's color coded, but it also has a lot of areas listed on this chart that were not on Dr. Jensen's original chart that we used to use. So what I'm going to do here is just kind of explain to you, in case you don't know how the chart works. I'm going to go ahead and explain to you how it works so you kind of get an idea. It actually works just like your body. So here is the right eye, okay, and that shows us the right side of the body. Here's the left, shows us the left side of the body. In the center of your body, you have your digestive system. You have your stomach, you have your colon, you have your small intestines. Well, right around the pupil, this is the pupil, right around the pupil here is the stomach. This is the right side of the stomach. This is the left side of the stomach. Around that, you have your intestines. So here you can see, this is the small intestines. This is the right side of the small intestines. This is the left side of the small intestines. So the small intestines comes down, then the cecum goes across, ascending colon goes up, transverse goes across, descending comes down, then it goes across the sigmoid and it comes out. On the outside of your body is your skin. Okay, so here on the outside, this is the skin. And the iris is broken down into 7 zones. So all of these circles here, so we have the stomach in zone 1 and the intestines in zone 2. This is zone 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So the skin is on the outside of your body, and it is also on the outside of the iris in zone 7. All right, so at the top of your body, you have your head, your brain. Okay, so from here, from 11 to 1 is the brain. Here's the sinuses right here, and here's the brain. This is the right side of the brain. This is the left side of the brain. At the bottom of your body are your legs, right? Your legs, your knee, your ankles, your feet, your thighs. Okay, so down here at 6 o'clock, this is the hip and the knee. Okay, the hip, the thigh, the knee, and the foot. This is the left leg, and this is the right leg. Everything else is in between. Okay, so here's the heart on the left side. This is the breast here and the left lung. Okay, here are the ribs, left ribs. This little circle here is the nipple. Okay, here is the left side of the spine. Here's the right side of the spine. Same thing on this side. We've also seen that any of the organs that are in the center of the body, they're going to be on both sides of the chart, which is why the heart is on the left and the right. Here we have the upper breast, the lungs. Here we have the breast here, the ribs, and the nipple. Here we have the liver. So we can see all the organs, the adrenals and kidneys, the prostate and uterus, the penis, vagina, okay, the liver here, the thyroid, parathyroid, all the glands, all the organs, all the parts of the body. Here's the face area, the throat, upper back, lower back, the pelvis, lower abdomen, upper abdomen, the chest, the neck, and the brain. So this is the chart that we use. And wherever we see any kind of markings, lines, spots, anything that looks like a hole, anything that looks raised, green, white, wherever it falls on this chart, then that can tell us where there may be genetic tendencies, where there could be inflammation, where there could be issues that might be causing symptoms in a person. Okay, and we go back to those we look for those genetic tendencies, and then we can help our clients. So this is the chart that we use. I wanted to throw that in there. So here are the signs that I'm going to go over tonight in this class. And these are all the Lacuna, the Crypts, defect signs are all genetic signs, and they indicate a potential for deficiency, but at the time they may not be causing a problem. So in other words, just because somebody has this mark in their eye does not mean they're having symptoms. They may never have symptoms. It could be coming from mom, okay? It could be a genetic tendency coming from mom, but depending on how the client lives, depending on what they do, what they eat, what they drink, you know, if they smoke, don't smoke, take drugs, don't take drugs, their lifestyle, whatever they're doing, they may or they may not ever have symptoms. Okay, so we're looking for those genetic tendencies just so we can let the person know, hey, there could be a problem here. This is showing us that there's a genetic tendency. There could be a problem here. So make sure that you don't do the things that'll cause problems, right? If there's a genetic tendency in the lung, right, and there's potential to have a problem in the lung, well, you certainly don't want to start smoking, you know, because that could cause more problems. So, you know, it's a great way, you know, we talk about, you know, working with clients so that, you know, they may already have problems or they may not, and we want to make sure that they don't have problems in the future. So some of the things I'm going to talk about tonight: radial fibers or trabecula. There are multiple lacuna types. I'm just going to go over these four, which is open lacuna, a closed lacuna, crypts, and defect signs. And then some of the most common are contraction burrows. Then there are funnels, and I'll tell you a little story about a funnel. Tophi, scurf rim is very common, and circulatory rings. Okay, so these are the common signs that I'm going to go over tonight. And also cords. So here is a nice picture of a blue eye here. And these fibers, you can see fibers right here. These are called radial fibers or trabecula. And let me just show you in this eye some of the parts of the chart. So here you can see this is the pupil. Okay, and around here we have this area here with another circle right here. This is called a collarette. Inside this collarette here is what's called the nutritive zone, or the stomach and colon. So inside here, between the pupil and this collarette, is the nutritive zone, or the stomach and colon. Outside here is everything else, all the organs, all the lymph, all the blood, everything that we can see is out here, okay, inside here. Okay, so these fibers, these are called radial fibers or trabecula. These are all the normal fibers, and you can see them in the eye. Some of them will be very wavy, some of them will be white, some will be very straight, some will have a lot of marks in them or spots like this, some will have these pigments. But what we're looking at is we're looking at these fibers, okay? These fibers here, they're composed of blood vessels that are wrapped in a protective sheath composed of connective tissue, kind of like the Schwann sheath that surrounds the nerves in the nervous system. Okay, these fibers make up the bulk of the iris, and it runs from the pupil border. This is the pupil border right here. It runs from the pupil border all the way out to the iris edge out here. Okay, and it runs in a radial pattern. Okay, so these are fibers here. These are radial fibers. And here I have a brown eye. And here, you know, with brown eyes, we really have a hard time seeing these radial fibers because there's so much pigment on top of the eye, and the pigment just covers the eye. So we can see the brown, but we really can't see these fibers except inside here. This is inside this, where the stomach and the colon are. This is inside that collarette here, and this is called the nutritive zone. So we can see these fibers running radially inside the nutritive zone in a brown eye. Okay, now I want to talk about lacuna. So there are many, many different types of lacuna. There are closed lacuna, there are open lacuna, there are small lacuna, there are large lacuna. There are many, many different lacuna with many different explanations. They can show up anywhere in the eye. I've got an arrow pointing to this one here. This one here is considered a closed lacuna. Okay, a closed lacuna is something that's looks like it's encapsulated. You can see that it has a ring all the way around this. Okay, so that's a closed lacuna. Over here, this is also a lacuna, and you can see that it's open. It has kind of an edge here, but there's no edge on this side. Okay, there's no edge, there's no ring. So this is an open lacuna, and this is a closed lacuna. Here you can see it up close. Here's a closed lacuna. So these they actually look like a hole, okay, in the fabric of the iris, all right? And they are caused by a separation of fibers. They can be open or closed, surrounded by a border of fibrous tissue. An open lacuna, like this, okay, it represents organs or areas that absorb nutrients and releases toxins more easily than a closed lacuna. So we can't, in iridology, we're trying to get away from medical terms, and we're trying to get away from buzzwords that can get us into trouble. So saying that something is, can heal, okay? We're better off using words like something that absorbs nutrients and releases toxins much more easily than a closed lacuna. So a closed lacuna looks like an encapsulation in the iris, and it represents a genetic deficiency in an organ that may or may not be causing a problem in the moment. Okay, when it does cause problems to a person, that area is more difficult to get nutrients into and remove toxins from. And it's usually a slower area, okay? Whereas the open lacuna it's easier for it to allow those nutrients in and the toxins to be removed. Here we have a blue eye. Okay, this is my son's eye. And of course, all of my family have had their eyes, pictures of their eyes done, and they've all listened to me talk about their eyes. And so you can see my son, this is a closed lacuna here, okay, because it's all closed up. This is an open lacuna here. This one doesn't have an edge here. This is an open lacuna here. It doesn't have an edge. This is an open lacuna. It doesn't have an edge. So there are a lot of them. Here's an open lacuna. Here's a little tiny genetic, a little genetic marking here. So we have closed lacunas and we have open lacuna. Okay. And so wherever we see these, we know that there are genetic tendencies and that these areas could be causing problems. Does it mean just because these markings are showing up in his eye that he has these problems? No. But also we can see a lot about personality also. So we can look at the fibers. Okay, so now you should already understand about the fibers. The fibers, remember, run radially from the pupil out to the iris border. So we can see the fibers, and his fibers are a little looser. There's a little bit more space. They're a little bit wavier than that other picture that I showed you. Okay, and he's got more of these lacuna in here. So since he's my son, I know where he has his weaknesses and his strengths, and I know, about, which ones of these are causing him issues and which ones aren't. But in iridology, one of the things that we do is we ask questions, rather than diagnosing, which, a lot of people, when they come into the Iridology, the Facebook group, they want to get in there and they want to start diagnosing. Well, you have this and you have that and you have the other. And we can't do that. First of all, we don't know anything about the person, right? We don't have their intake forms. We don't know anything about their history. We know nothing about their health. So we can't get in there and say, well, you have problems with your lymph system and you have problems with your circulation and you have problems with your heart. I mean, we don't know anything. We can say that there is a lacuna in an area and there's possibly a genetic tendency towards issues with that. But we need to ask the questions. We need to find out, hey, do you have symptoms here? Do you have a problem there? We can't just go in there and start telling them all about themselves when we don't even know anything about them. That's not okay. So here's another picture. Here's another open lacuna. So this one here, this is open here. It's not completely encapsulated. Here's another open one. And it takes time. Here's a closed one. It takes time for you to be able to recognize these. So I'm showing these to you just to kind of give you an idea. Some of the things that we look at in the eye, we look to see for some of these marks, and we look to see where they are on the chart. And that tells us, of course, where there could be various problems. And that is that closed lacuna again. I guess I had the same picture in there. And here is a closed lacuna again, and another closed lacuna. So you can really see it here, how it's completely, how it has a ring, how it's completely encapsulated. This one too, right? And this one too, same with this one. These are all closed. Okay, crypts are little tiny lacuna that are on the outside, and they're very, very small. You can see I put an arrow to this one here. Very small, often rhomboid in shape, which means it's quadrilateral, and usually only the opposite sides and angles are equal, and they're usually deep and dark inside. So see how dark these are? These are dark. Okay, so some of these are crypts. A lot of times you have them inside the nutritive zone as well. Okay, a lot of times you have them inside the nutritive zone. The darker the crypt, the more serious the potential condition, especially if they are in what we call vital organ reaction fields, such as the heart or the kidneys. You know, if we see that in those, we call those reaction fields. You know, one of the things that we have to realize when we look at the eyes, is we can't, if we see a marking, let's say we see a marking in the kidney. Okay, well, we can't say there's that there's a problem in the kidney because we can't see the kidney. The only way we can see the kidney is if we get you on a table and put you to sleep and then cut open your body and look at your kidney. So when we're looking at the eyes, we're actually looking at the reaction that's coming from that organ. Okay, that we're looking at the reaction. So that's why we call it a reaction field, because we're not actually looking at the organ itself. We're actually looking at the reaction that it's showing us in the eye. And so that is what we're looking at. Okay, defect signs. Here's a little defect sign. They're very similar. They're smaller than crypts, but usually very black inside. So there'd be one right there, very, very dark. Here'd be one, very, very dark. There'd be a little teeny one inside here. Some very dark ones. There's a very dark, very, very dark, very dark. Okay, here's one that's very dark. The blacker the area in the iris, the greater the decreased ability to fight off illness and to hold in nutrients and release toxins. You know, we all live in this world, right? We all breathe the same air. We all, drink water that has chemicals in it. We all eat food that has chemicals in it. You know, we do our best, to take in healthy food, healthy air. We all use cell phones and we're all affected by EMFs. And so we're all bombarded by all this stuff. And so we all have toxins that our body is always having to give off, and we're always detoxing and cleansing and working with that. And so our bodies are constantly working. One of the things that I wanted to mention is, which is really controversial now in iridology, is the color of the eye. What we found in iridology, and this is a really great example of that, we find through research in iridology that the iris does not change. So this person's eye is not going to change. Okay, this person has yellow pigment and orange pigment, and they have brown pigment. Here's brown pigment. There's a lot of yellow pigment in here. There's a lot, you can see the orange in here. That's not going to go away. It's genetic. Okay, that doesn't mean that they have sulfur in their body. It doesn't mean that they have chemicals in their body. It's not drugs that's showing up in their body. This is real old iridology. Okay, it's very, very old iridology. You can't cleanse this out of the body. Okay, you can cleanse it out of the body, but it's not going to change in the eye. This is genetic. Okay, this is showing us that this person has a genetic tendency towards blood sugar problems. Okay, towards the inability to break down their carbohydrates. This is showing us that they have a genetic tendency towards the kidneys possibly not filtering real well. Okay, but it doesn't tell us that they have sulfur or that they have drugs or that they're so toxic that they're never going to clean out. That's old iridology, and there are so many iridologists out there, including myself, that are doing research by seeing clients, a lot of clients over and over and over again, and seeing the changes, what changes and what doesn't change. What changes is the pupil. If you think about it, when you shine light in your eye, the pupil contracts because it's because it has to stop all that light from getting into the eye. You know, if too much light gets into the eye, it can damage the retina, can damage the eye. So, you know, when the light shines into the eye, the pupil will contract. It'll get very small. Well, think about it. If this pupil gets very small, it's going to pull all of these markings in this iris close. It's going to make them long. Okay, it's going to elongate all of these markings in this eye. It's going to make it look different. But that's only because the pupil is tiny. Now, what about the opposite? What if this person is in a dark room? Well, what's going to happen is their pupil is going to get very large because they need to let more light in their eye. Okay, what's going to happen to the eye when this pupil enlarges and gets really large out here? It's going to push all these markings out. It's going to smash all these markings. It's going to make them look wide. We used to think that that meant the eye was changing until we realized that that's just the pupil contracting and enlarging and contracting and enlarging. It's a big muscle contracting and enlarging. That's what changes. The structure of this eye is not going to change. The color of this eye is not going to change. This is who this person is. They just need to learn what to eat, what to drink, what kind of a lifestyle, what to do so that they can live comfortably in their body. Sure, they need to detox. They live in this world. They need to detox. You know, best thing to do is do a spring and fall cleaning, just like you do on your house. But these are not going to go away. These little crypts and these lacuna and these genetic defects and these pigments, they're not going to go away because that's who you are. You can accumulate more pigments as you get older, so you can get more of these brown pigments and orange pigments, but they're not going to go away. I mean, once in a while we may see them go away, but most of the time you just get more pigments. You accumulate pigments as you age, kind of like you accumulate age spots on your skin. Same thing. A cord, these are cords. So let me show you this eye. This is a blue eye, and here are many lacuna. Here's a lacuna, here's a lacuna, here's a lacuna. These are all lacuna, all these. It's a beautiful eye, and it looks like a flower. If you follow me in the Facebook group, you'll see once in a while that I tell people their eye looks like a flower. If you sit back and look at this eye, it looks like it's a flower, like these are all petals from a flower. In between here, you can see these fibers here are raised and they're white. It looks like they're raised and they're white. This is called a cord, okay? And these cords are usually, these are fibers that are pinched together into a bundle, and they represent irritation in this reaction field where they're located. Okay, so that's what they represent. They represent irritation. And the color white in the eye represents irritation and possible pain. You know, you need to talk to the client to find out if they have irritation, inflammation, pain, things like that. So those are cords. And we do see all of these signs in every color iris. Here's a cord. You can see it here. There's a cord. There may be some cords down here also. Okay, so those are cords. It's when the iris fibers are pinched together and raised. Parafocal lightning. I don't see this a lot, but I did put it in here. I kept it in here as a common iris sign. And what it is when we see one of these lacuna that has a white ring around it. So it's a closed lacuna, and it has a white ring completely around it. Okay, so these lacuna are surrounded by a very bright white band. Okay, focal means around or surrounding a focus, such as a focus of infection. Thus, it shows inflammation in this area, in a local area, which could be of long standing. So there could be possibly infection or inflammation in this area. So we need to look at the iridology chart to figure out where this is. Now, this happens to be my husband's eye, and this happens to be right outside the descending colon, and he does have diverticulitis. And so this is possibly an area of irritation for him, which obviously it is. So we could see that there may be a problem. So I can see this in his eye. I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, by the way, you have irritation, irritation and irritability in that area. No, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at it. I'm going to say, well, you see this area, there could be possibility, a genetic tendency towards that. And then I'm going to ask the client. Rather than diagnose, I'm going to have a conversation with that client and then also work with them with their intake form that they provided to help them. Contraction burrows, also known as nerve rings, stress rings, anxiety rings. These are these rings that go around. Think of walking in the forest. Maybe you've gone walking with your family in the forest, in the woods, and you see a tree that's been cut down. You look at the tree and you see all these rings in the tree. And in a tree, we count the rings to see how old the tree is. Each ring has to do with 1 year that that tree's been alive. Thank God we don't have that many rings in our eyes. Well, in our eyes, this has to do with nerves and stress and tension, especially muscle, okay, muscular tension and anxiety. Okay, we call them contraction furrows because that is how they behave. Okay, that's how they behave. These are genetic. They do not go away. Even with high amounts of B complex and passion flower, nerving herbs, and all those kinds of things, these do not go away. They are genetic. This is my eye. So you look at my eye and you go, oh my gosh, look at all those rings. How many does she have? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know, Dr. Jensen had rings in his eyes. He had, I think he had 2, 1 or 2. And, you know, when we took the class, I remember that somebody asked him why he had, at the time we called them nerve rings, why he had nerve rings in his eyes. And he said, well, you know, you can't get anything done if you don't have a couple. And that was, you know, that was funny at the time. But remember what I said when I got into iridology. I was very stressed out. I was in a lot of pain. I couldn't lay flat on the bed because my back was hurting. I had massive indigestion problems. I couldn't eat out at restaurants anymore. So, you know, if you want to look at my eye, you can see how dark this nutritive zone is here. Lots of digestive issues and all of these contraction furrows. If you watch my family video, I have a family video. I show pictures of my mom and my dad. They have these as well. Okay, these are genetic. And I do tend to get a lot of tension. I hold the tension in my muscles. And so I have to get massages. I've learned how to live in my body. I've learned what works for me. I've learned what supplements I need to take to feel good, to work with my genetic tendencies. I've learned what foods to eat. I've learned all these things by learning by iridology and learning through iridology what helps me. Here we have more contraction furrows. So this person only has a couple of contraction furrows, not as many. And depending on where they are, depending on what color they are, depending on how many they are, that all has to do with how a person holds their stress and their nerves and their anxiety and so on. So there are many things that have to do with these contraction furrows. Now, funnels. This is a funnel. This is in my son's eye. This is a funnel here. And it starts here in the nutritive zone and it opens up into what's called, this is the ciliary zone or the stroma. It goes right through those fibers. And this, wherever we see a funnel like this, it's created by an opening in this collarette, sweeps out into the zone, and it shows a potential genetic deficiency in nerve energy to this particular part of the body. This is what got me to realize about genetic tendencies. I used to think, I used to think that this marking showed up in his eye after he was born. So he was born with brachial plexus injury. And if you don't know what that is, when he was born, he got stuck in the birth canal, supposedly, all right? The doctor reached in, pulled and twisted his head and pulled him out. And when he did that, he caused stress to the brachial nerves. Well, those nerves start up in your neck and they go down your arm into your hand. When he was born, he was paralyzed on his right side, down all the way down. And I had to take him for physical therapy and took him to Reiki and, and all these things. And we did physical therapy with him every time we changed his diaper. He's pretty normal now. There isn't too much that he can't do. But then I saw this mark. This is in the shoulder area in the right eye. This is the right eye. The nose is over here. The ear is over here. And I saw this marking in here. And I thought, well, this marking was caused when he was born, when he was injured. And then I learned about genetic tendencies. And I realized this marking was already there in his eye. He already had the genetic tendency to have a problem in that right shoulder. So when he was born, this area was he already had a problem here. Okay, he already had a genetic weakness here. And when the doctor pulled on his head and twisted it, it just caused more of a problem. It strained those nerves and those tendons that were already had a problem. So, he had the injury. So this was already there. This marking didn't show up when he was injured. It already was there. And that's really what synced it for me with learning about genetic tendencies. That's when I really started understanding that the iris really doesn't change, that this is a genetic tendency for him. And this will always be an area that doesn't absorb nutrients or give off toxins, as well as an area that doesn't have a genetic tendency. Anyway, that's a little bit about my son and how I changed some of my beliefs in iridology. And family is, if somebody's going to do it, it's going to be family. These are called tophi, these little spots. We used to call them a lymphatic rosary because it looks like a rosary kind of going around the eye like this. This is the immune system showing up here. Okay, and we can see like swollen lymph nodes, when they're kind of a yellow or orange color like this, it can have to do with toxicity. And so these do not leave the eye. I've heard people say that, oh, if you cleanse, it'll go away. If you strengthen your immune system, it'll go away. It doesn't go away. These never leave the eye. These are in blue eyes. If you have blue eyes, you're going to have these tophi. This shows up in a blue eye. This is one of the markings that show up in the blue eye. They look like a string of pearls. And it can indicate a potential genetic tendency for lymphatic congestion and stagnation. So if you have blue eyes and you can see that you have these tophi, then you know that you need to work on your immune system, and you probably have to work on it for your entire life, because that is a genetic tendency for a blue-eyed person. Okay. It's these tendencies. And here we see more. These are just thicker. These are thicker and larger tophi. Okay, we can see them here. You can see them here, dot, 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 dot. Okay. Scurf rim, very common. And, where you can really see a scurf rim is when you watch television. Scurf rim is here on the outside. This is the skin, zone 7. This is on the skin. Remember, I told you the skin, it's on the outside of the body. It's also on the outside of the iris. And it's usually a darker color. I mean, this eye, if you were standing in front of this person, you would say this person has green eyes, because they have a blue eye with a lot of yellow sitting on top. And if you think of color crayons or paints, you think of blue background and you put yellow on top, it's going to make it look green. But this here, it almost looks like they took like eyebrow pencil and just kind of, and they just drew around their eye. But that's not what's going on. This has to do with zone 7. This is also genetic. It doesn't go away. Skin brushing for a year does not make it go away. It helps your skin. It helps open up the skin so it can breathe, but it's not going to make the scurf rim go away. It is a structural sign. It's a genetic sign. It's caused by the thinning of these iris fibers. And you can see here how they're thinning here. It's caused by a thinning of the iris fibers. It can indicate that there's a potential tendency for skin conditions, right? Such as acne, psoriasis, and eczema, but it never goes away. So this person will always have a tendency towards skin issues. So they need to learn what to do to help their skin so that they don't have acne, psoriasis, and eczema. Okay. You can really see it in models if you watch like commercials where models are putting on makeup, or they're demonstrating eyeliner or lipstick. You can really see that on television when you watch commercials. Here's another one. Here's another really nice scurf rim that you can see going around. It's a darker. Okay, so that's the scurf rim. The last marking that I want to show you is called a circulatory ring. And that is not on the iris, that's off the iris. It's outside the iris. It's actually on the sclera. This is the sclera, the white part of your eye. And here it's kind of a bluish, purplish ring right outside the eye. Almost everybody has it. And I can't say 100% of people have it, but most people have this circulatory ring. Used to be called venous congestion. And it's considered to present a circulatory deficiency in the body. So potential tendencies could be cold or numb extremities, cold hands, cold feet. If you have a tendency towards cold hands, cold feet, you might have that marking. You can see it here on this brown eye. You can see the blue on the outside. So this is on the sclera. Okay, so that's the end of my presentation, and I'm just about right on time. So I just want to thank you for listening, and for those of you that have been here live, I want to thank you for being here live. A lot of people aren't able to be on here because they're in different countries, and if you watch this presentation and you're someplace else, I appreciate you taking the time to watch the recording. I did record this. It will be available. I'll send it out. I'll put it in the Facebook group. Feel free to share this with anybody you want. It's free. I'm going to put it in my website. You can watch it as many times as you want if you want to learn again. I do have upcoming classes starting in February through May. It'll probably actually go into June because there are evaluations that you have to do. Now, if I do teach in two different ways, I record everything. So I do have students that want to start now and they have signed up. If you want to start now, you can learn from recordings that I've already done. If you want to take a class and start in February, this is my schedule. And I teach Tuesday and Thursday mornings. My classes, I have two set up, one from 8 to 10 a.m. and one from 5 to 7 p.m. because I have some people that want to take night classes, so I thought I would do that. The class is $1,300, and IPA charges $200 at the end of the class to take their exam. So this $200 is completely separate from my fee. This covers all the instruction, all the PowerPoints, all the note pages, all the recordings, anything, all my tutoring and mentoring, everything that I do during the class and after the class. If you need tutoring to help you pass the exam, it covers everything. Everything's recorded. If you want to take the class and you have a dentist appointment or you have to take your child to school, it doesn't matter. Everything's recorded. Everything's on your own time. You'll notice that I do post in the Facebook group when people are completing level 1 and level 2. And, my class is kind of like a revolving door. I have people coming in and I have people completing the different levels at different times because life gets in the way. We all have lives. We all have different schedules and everybody's kind of on their own time. I do have payment plans. Some people pay everything up front, some people pay half, some people want to do $100 a month. I'm flexible. So if you want to take the class and you don't have a lot of money and you want to take it, I will work it out for you so that you can take the class. I'm more interested in you being able to take the class than, you know, and you can make payments. I'm fine with that. So, you know, if you want to take it, I'll work that out with you. This is the link for the class, and you can find it on the website, find it in the Facebook group. I do give private classes. I do travel to teach once COVID is, you know, once we're clear with COVID, I think that'll be a lot easier. I do one-on-one tutoring, and, you know, these are included in the course fees. So that is the end of my class, and I'm going to see if anybody has any questions, see who's here, since I can never see who's actually here. And let me unmute here. Okay, so does anybody have any questions? I see there's some people who have chosen to go raw vegan say, let me see. Some people who have chosen to go raw vegan say their eye color lightened up after they adopted the new lifestyle. What would you like to comment on? Would you like to comment on this? Sure, I'll comment. There's a lot of things that make the eyes look different. You know, the lighting is number one. You know, so I'd have to see pictures. You know, if you're angry, if you're sad, if the time of the day, the color of your clothing, these are all things that can change the way that your eye looks. The lighting that is taken with the camera when you take a picture, that's huge. You know, if you're taking a picture inside, if you're taking a picture outside in the sun, the time of day, if it's the morning or the afternoon, these are all things that can make the eye look, you know, different. And especially when, you know, people are sending me pictures for remote readings, you know, they can send pictures that are taken at different times and different days, and the pictures will look different. So I'd have to see the pictures. So if, you know, about, you know, before and after pictures, I'd have to see them. They need to be taken at the same time of day with the same camera, with the same lighting, so that we can really see if there really has been any change. So far, no one has been able to do that. Even with people that swear their eyes have changed, and then they send me pictures, when we really compare it, you know, when we really compare the markings and the lighting, we're really not seeing changes. The structure's not changing. You know, sometimes the pupil's a little larger or a little smaller. Sometimes the lighting is different. And so we're seeing that the eyes really are not changing. You know, somebody that goes on a vegan diet is going to feel better, right? They're going to feel, they may feel better. They may notice that they have more energy, or their bowels are better, or their health problems have gone away. Maybe their eyes are brighter, but, you know, the sclera will change. Okay, that will change based on, you know, if you're on a cleansing program, if you're on a healing program, if you're taking supplements, if you're doing detoxing, if an area of your body is getting stronger and healing, the sclera will change. So the sclera shows us what's going on now, whereas the iris shows us our genetic tendencies. Can we see MS in the iris? We cannot diagnose from the eye. So I could not say you have MS from your eye. I can say what the genetic tendencies are. I can speak with a client and find out what their symptoms are and work from there, but we cannot diagnose from the eye. Their patient, ophthalmologists can tell their patients when they have lung cancer. Do you know if that is as an assessment based on iridology? You know, I can tell you years ago when I was in San Francisco, I had a group of women that came, and, you know, I did iridology, and I had a group of women. I had a woman that had lung cancer, or had breast cancer, and she had treatment, and she came because she wanted to know if she had cancer in the other breast. And she asked me, can you tell me if I have cancer in the other breast? And you can't diagnose from the eyes. I did see markings in her breast, so I told her to go get it checked. So, you know, even as iridologists, we can't diagnose, but if we suspect that there could be problems, we're going to send you to the doctor. We're going to send you for medical tests. We're going to send you for blood tests. We're going to send you for MTHFR blood tests. We're going to send you for whatever we think that you may need so that you can find out if you have a problem. And but we cannot diagnose. I really don't know what he, what that ophthalmologist used to figure out if there was cancer, but we cannot diagnose from the eyes. Maybe they said go see a specialist and get checked. Probably. Yeah, I don't know. I really couldn't answer that question. But as iridologists, we cannot diagnose from the eyes. Why would I want to anyway? I'm not a doctor. So, I'm an iridologist. I've been an iridologist for 31 years. And I'm amazed at the eyes. I'm amazed what we can see in the eyes, personality-wise, physically-wise, emotionally-wise. We can see many things and we can help so many people. So that's what it's all about. Anybody have any other questions, any comments? You're welcome to unmute and ask questions or comments, anything you want. Anything else? Can you see new markings or changing in the eye? Example, if someone gets their eye checked and say 10 years, they become more toxic. Okay, so like I said earlier, the iris is accumulative. So in 10 years, we may be able to see changes, but the changes would be more pigment. Okay, so we might see more yellow or more orange or more brown pigments in the eye. Like I said, just like you would on your arms, you might see more age spots, liver spots, whatever you want to call them. So you may see more of that, or you could see those tophi, more yellow or orange in the tophi. You might see some darker rings in the eye. The eye's accumulative, so we won't see those colors go away or those markings go away. However, in the sclera, we may see it go away if somebody is on a detox program or a cleansing program, or they've changed their diet. We can see that. Same thing if somebody has a lot of yellow in their sclera, okay, then we know that they may need to work on their liver if there's yellow. And so they decide to go on detox and they decide to, work on their liver with maybe milk thistle or TRS or get checked for MTHFR or whatever. And then they come back and we look at their sclera again, maybe it's not yellow. So that shows us, hey, they've worked on their body, their liver's, been detoxing, they've been working on it. That's where we're going to see the changes, really, is in that sclera. And I just went down and worked with Michael Salas down in LA. It was amazing the changes that we saw. We saw so many changes in the pupils. So the pupils change. The pupils change not only the size, but where there's flattenings in the pupil. We saw that change, and we saw many changes in the pupil, not in the iris, but in the pupil, also in the sclera. So we do see those changes. Why aren't all the genetic signs in the iris at birth? Why do they show up later in life? You can't see anything. Okay, I shouldn't say that. We cannot see a lot in the eye until a child is like 7 years old, okay? The eyes continue to change until they're older. And then we're able to see a lot of those genetic markings. And then also, you got to realize that the way we live can activate some of those genetic tendencies, right? That's like what I said in the very, very beginning. It's like if you have a genetic tendency towards having problems in your lungs, you're not going to want to start smoking. But what if you don't know? What if you don't know you have a genetic tendency in those lungs, and then you start smoking and you activate that genetic tendency? Well, you didn't know and you activated it. Okay, and so then voila, it's causing a problem. So there's a lot that goes into that. If the optic nerve is damaged due to a pituitary tumor, will the eye still show signs of genetically susceptible areas? Are new markings likely to show up, or would old ones disappear following a cataract surgery due to disruption in the wholeness of the eye? The eye doesn't change, so the surgery is not going to change the eye. That the markings will stay there. The eye's not going to change because it's showing your genetic tendencies. And also during surgery, the eye doesn't change. So the iris is not going to change. It'll stay the same. The sclera may change. I've seen a lot of changes in the sclera where the vessels change. Leonard Melmer with Grand Medicine, he gives some really great classes. He gives free classes at lunch. And, you know, if that's something that you're interested in, it's amazing what you can find out if you watch some of those. He shows, you know, the blood vessels and when somebody's been on a cleansing program and how there's changes. And IPA's going to be getting involved in sclerology too, so that's something else that'll be available later. So that's something else that's a whole nother science with sclerology. Is it possible to tell in your eye what possible genetic strengths or weaknesses you could pass to your offspring? Yes. Okay. So I've had many, you know, grandma, mom, and granddaughter, and mother and two children, and, you know, that I've seen. And you can see similar markings in the mom and the children, or the grandma and the, like I said, I have pictures of my parents and my eyes and my daughter, and my eyes and my daughter's eyes were almost identical. We're so similar. And then my mom and my dad, me and my daughter, we all have those contraction burrows. Now, sure, they have some other markings that I don't have. And I have some markings that they don't have. My son, his eyes are completely different than my eyes or my husband's eyes. And I've been trying to track down somebody in our family that has a similar structure to my son, so that I can learn more about his genetic tendencies. But so far I have not. Nobody on my side of the family has his eye structure. So I'm still working on that. So yes, you can tell some of that. I mean, you're not going to be able to look at your eye and say, well, I'm definitely going to be passing on these genetic tendencies, because you wouldn't know that until your child is born, you know, if you do or don't, you know, that's not something we can tell from the eyes. Leonard Melmer. If you look up Grand Medicine online, you can find him. How do you define the genetic tendencies? Are we referring to certain? Well, what we're looking for is we're looking for certain markings that are showing up in the eye. Okay, that's when we see genetic tendencies. Knowing nothing about iridology, it seems incredibly difficult to analyze brown colored eyes compared to blue-green eyes. How do you deal with that logistically in your analysis? Are brown eyes really harder to evaluate? It really depends on you. I have some students that actually they do better with brown eyes than blue eyes. Every iris color constitution has its own set of genetic tendencies. Blue-eyed people tend to have more weaknesses in respiratory and lymphatic. Mixed-eyed people tend to have more weakness in digestive, okay, like stomach, colon, gallbladder, pancreas, intestines, okay? And then your brown-eyed people tend to have more genetic tendencies towards blood and bone. And so it really depends. With a brown-eyed person, you know, you've got the pigment on top, so you can't see all the pretty colors, but you can still see their subtype. You can still see the rings, and, you know, you can still see a lot in a brown eye. You just can't see the pretty colors. But if you know their genetic tendencies and you know the history of the person, then you can figure it out. You can figure it out. And that takes practice. You know, iridology is not, like I said, iridology is not something that you can just buy a book and learn and then do it. You know, it takes more than just a book. You know, it takes a lot of practice and a lot of work, and that's what it's all about. Any other questions? Any comments, anything else that you would like to add? Well, I really, what kind of camera do I use? I use the SD 804, which is the camera. It's on the website, and it has a chin rest and a forehead rest, and it has it's a good camera. It how can I say? It doesn't pixelate the pictures, so you can enlarge the pictures to give presentations. That's the camera I use to take all my pictures. What are the requirements you ask from them for the photos? You mean for my clients? What do you mean? Yes, when they send I request 10 photos from everybody if I do a remote reading. So if I'm doing a remote reading, I want 10 pictures, one of each iris, one from the temporal regions on both sides, nasal regions on both sides, the upper quadrants and the lower quadrants. It's 10 pictures. And then I require my waiver signed and my intake form filled out. If I have a client in front of me, then I also take those pictures, all of those pictures for photos. Thank you, Benjamin. I appreciate that. So those are so if you want to have a remote reading, I'm available for that. You can find that on the website. You can text me later. How extensive is your intake form? It's 4 pages. Asks you a lot of questions. Asks you about your diet. Asks you about your family history. Asks you about symptoms. Grading it from 1 to 3. If you're on medications, if you're taking supplements, it gives us a good background of what's going on with you, what your symptoms are, what you want to work on, things like that. Okay, anything else? You're welcome. Thank you all for being here. I guess we went over with questions, but appreciate you being here. If you have any questions, you can email me, you can Facebook me, you can get in touch with me, and I really appreciate you all spending your hour with me. Hi, Judith. Nice to see you. And I really appreciate all of you spending your time with me. And I hope that you all have a really great evening, and Merry Christmas to everybody. Merry Christmas, happy holidays. I hope your holidays are happy and you stay healthy, be careful. And I hope to talk to all of you again. Good evening, everybody.